We have a very important broadcast today. We're going to be breaking down the current political situation in the United States, also internationally as well. We'll do that in the first segment. And in the overdrive segment, in the second hour, we'll be joined by our teammates from Alternate Current Radio Network. I think we'll definitely have Hesher on the line, possibly Basil Valentine as well, who'll be rejoining us after a break, being away for a couple of weeks. And, well, where do we start? Where do we start? And if you look at the show title for this week's Sunday Wire, those of you who've been following these issues for a while, you'll be familiar with a film by Aaron Russo, who was a Hollywood filmmaker, also a financier. Probably the most famous film he made was Trading Places. I think he was a producer of Trading Places with Eddie Murphy. That was back in the 80s. But he made a film called Freedom to Fascism. And we'll bring that up on stage. You can see the bottom is a title. That's just a little bit of a nod to the great Aaron Russo. And we thought we would say he was obviously ahead of the game, you know, and this kind of made its rounds on the alternative media at the time. This would be in the early 2000s, 2008, 9, 10. Sadly, Aaron passed away. He was, you know, a great voice, made a big impact on a lot of people before he moved on. And his film was quite a red pill for a lot of people. And this was promoted heavily by Alex Jones at the time. It's called Freedom to Fascism. America, Freedom to Fascism. And that's the title of today's program of the Sunday Wire. And this was meant to be kind of used to point at the time, it would have been this Bush administration was in power, and there was a technocracy coming into effect. This would have been things like the equivalent of the digital ID issue today, digital money, shutting off people's access by the flick of a switch, transhumanism, microchips, no buying or selling without the mark, that kind of thing. And the irony of this, of course, is that it's coming into full effect under Donald Trump in America. We can talk about Europe and the UK. That's certainly things are proceeding at a rapid pace, but we have to point out the irony that it's Donald Trump who supposedly ran as MAGA, ran as this sort of, you know, preserving our freedoms. And while there seemed to be a little bit of an improvement on some freedoms, we're talking about speech online and things like that, you know, moderate improvements, although there's just massive shadow banning right across the board, massive censorship on YouTube still, Google, the search engine Google, which is 98% of all internet searches, is completely rigged. Rigged against people like us, of course. That came in with Operation Owl in 2017 in April. But what's funny about this is it's quite obvious that this is happening under Trump. But there are people who've been co-opted as kind of MAGA, kind of magpies, if you will. And they're being paid incredibly well. And in return, they're basically promoting Trump as this sort of patriotic American, you know, freedom leader or something like that, when in fact it's the opposite. You are seeing actual, and the irony, of course, here is that the left have, and the progressives were screaming, Democrats screaming for a decade about the dangers of Trump being a fascist and authoritarian before he even got elected. His first term, he didn't seem to get up to much because he was on the defensive for 4 years. But he did one thing at the end, which is he did probably the biggest fascist move of modern history. He instituted one of the most vicious, most egregious crimes against humanity called Operation Warp Speed. And the reason the establishment, I think, selected Trump or allowed him to become president, because they knew that he was probably one of the weakest and he was so on his back heels that he would do anything to try to ingratiate himself with the press or the public. So he embraced the COVID crisis like it was some kind of mission from God. And he allowed the pharmaceutical industry to fast track one of the most dangerous mass attacks on Americans and on the world, in fact, with the experimental mRNA jab, which cost untold lives and injuries. And that was Donald Trump who paved the way for that without asking any questions. For him, these were great companies. Pfizer, great company. Moderna, wonderful company. You know, he's just constantly singing the praises of these corrupt pharmaceutical companies that he allowed into the White House. He's doing the same with Larry Ellison during his second term. And he used the Department of Defense to basically organize the procurement and distribution of those vaccines. That was all done under the Pentagon. We exposed that. Some other people who are doing real journalism also pointed this out. And in Europe, it was NATO was used as the sort of underlying official mechanism, if you will, for putting this out on the European and UK-wide basis. Of course, you won't hear that from some of the MAGA media. Of course, this is way above their pay grade. But nonetheless, Trump proved that he could do for the establishment everything like their wildest dreams. Trump delivered for the globalists in ways that no Democrat probably could have done, not with that level of efficiency. And so they continued to use him in his second term. And he ran a populist campaign, but he has delivered anything but freedom during his first year. And this is the extraordinary thing. We're only in the less than the first year of the Trump administration, and he's got a very bad record so far. But the irony of this, of course, escapes a lot of people. Now let's go through exactly what we're looking at here. And it's very important that people pay attention to what we are looking at. And here, we'll bring this up on screen so people understand the depth of this. And we'll break it down. Here's the first move, okay? A lot of you probably didn't know this because, of course, it's not going to get a lot of media attention. Why? Because this is something the establishment loved. Trump delivered a level of fascism here. Basically, Pete Hegseth, this sort of self-preening, tattoo-laden, second-rate weekend host at Fox, was gifted the job as the head of the Pentagon. Totally unqualified. And so don't be fooled by the American flag cravat. He's anything but a patriot. Okay, this guy is a servant of the establishment. Again, unqualified, doesn't know what's going on. Actually, the perfect person you want in charge of a $1.2 trillion Pentagon. So Hegseth and Trump said that mainstream reporters, we're talking about all the major outlets, they had to run their reporting by the Pentagon's press office before they could publish. These were the new rules. So the journalism pool walked out. So here's AP here. Journalists turn in their access badges to the Department of, well, it's called the Department of War. This is another insane thing that Trump has done. He's renamed the Department of Defense officially the Department of War. What does that tell you is coming? What does that tell you is coming? War. This is a president who lied to the American people on this facade of him being a peace president. Comes in first year, renames the DOD the Department of War. You couldn't make it up. Of course, the irony of this is lost on people like Alex Jones. They just haven't, or they're completely, have bought into the whole thing. But so the mainstream press are out because they won't allow a Soviet-style system or a Chinese-style system where all reporting has to go through the government before it can be allowed to be published. This is insane. This is like, I think they had more press freedom during World War II under FDR, or maybe more freedom under Abe Lincoln as a Union president during the Civil War. But so this is absolutely unbelievable. Can you believe this? Have you not heard of this? Has anybody heard of this? Did you miss that one? Is this the first time you've heard this? That happened this week. So here's what the Trump administration have done. They've extended there's Hegseth there. See the little American flag cravat and his handkerchief in his breast pocket. This is just ridiculous. He might be flying. He might have adorned himself with the American flag, but Pete Hegseth, unfortunately, doesn't believe in the U.S. Constitution, the thing he swore an oath to. Maybe he didn't swear an oath. I'm not sure. To defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So when you attack the press, you're an enemy of the Constitution. Pete Hegseth has the nerve to wear an American flag on a handkerchief in his breast while he shuts off the free press, which is specifically delineated in the U.S. Constitution. It's named. It's one of the only countries in the world, if maybe the only country, where the free press is directly addressed in the founding document. And Pete Hegseth has just trampled on it. Of course, that irony, again, is lost on the MAGA crowd, intellectually challenged and corrupt. So here's the Trump administration's response. I mean, honestly, this is just getting funny and sad at the same time. So the War Department, new outlets for the War Department, out with the papers of record, in with Lindell TV. That's Mike Lindell, the guy who sells pillows and slippers. So he's now in. The Gateway Pundit, which is some of the articles on there are ridiculous, but it's just like second-tier internet. Post-millennial, that's famous for running anti-woke articles. So they've got the anti-trans stuff. So you've got the premier anti-trans, anti-Antifa website in the Pentagon now. Human Events, that's Jack Posobiec. I'm not sure what their forte is other than proselytizing for MAGA. And the National Pulse, that's Raheem Kasim, I think his name is. And again, just MAGA outlets, definitely not objective, totally partisan and biased, and somewhat unqualified to be covering some of these topics. Okay. You just look at their output. They're basically going to be cheerleading Trump policies, whether those be regime change wars or what have you. It doesn't matter. The listing also includes Turning Point USA's media brand Frontlines. Never heard of them. And influencer Tim Pool's Timcast, now is a Pentagon news outlet. I can't imagine what Tim Pool's going to contribute there in terms of being a watchdog. These are, and this, I love this one, Substack-based newsletter called Washington Reporter. Never heard of them. So these aren't watchdogs. These are lapdogs. These are lapdogs. These will be as bigger lapdogs for the Trump presidency, Trump administration, bigger lapdogs than CNN was for Biden and Obama and Hillary. Okay. Let me repeat that. These will be bigger lapdogs, not watchdogs, lapdogs than CNN was for Biden and Obama. Okay. Some of these half-baked news outlets that, they excel in anti-woke, anti-LGBT, anti-trans. I mean, whoop-de-doo. Congratulations. You've done well there, guys. But in terms of geopolitics, you're sort of like, I give you a 2 out of 10. And you're just going to be cheerleading whatever wars are coming down the pipeline with this president who looks like, as we'll show you, hell-bent on launching more new wars. He's already launched 3, 4 new. If you count his first term, Trump launched a new war during his first term, which was he occupied Syria with U.S. troops. That was Trump, his first term, 2017. And it's funny because he used Obama's henchman to do it, Brett McGurk. That's what Trump did. That's how weak Trump was and clueless during his first term. He tried to launch a war against Venezuela, but failed twice. Two busted coups his first term. Did you hear that from Fox? No, you didn't. Also, Trump continued Obama's war on Yemen during his first term and bombed Yemen, continued to supply Saudi Arabia with everything. I even think U.S. pilots were probably flying the planes with Saudi flags on the side, just saying. And the other one was, yeah, Trump supplied lethal aid to Ukraine to advance that civil war, which led to the conflict in 2022. That was Trump. So Trump did plenty of warring on his first term. So this idea that Trump didn't drop any bombs or starting new wars in his first term is a lie, is fake. It's MAGA propaganda. Okay, I'm just pointing out facts. If that hurts your feelings, fine. But you can't run with these tropes anymore, guys. Sorry. So now he's banned the press, or said you have to do Stalin-esque controls on coverage of U.S. wars. The press has to run its reports through Pete Hegseth's office to get a stamp of approval. How freaking fascist is this? But that's actually happening. That's actually happening. So the press walked out and they put all these flunkies in, which is a joke. I mean, pretty incredible. Don't know what to say. They're slightly better than the Israeli influencers that Netanyahu had at his pep talk when he said he was taking over TikTok. Okay, next up. Now this should raise alarms. Okay, what I just showed you was serious, unprecedented attack on the U.S. Constitution. Fine, but here we are. Welcome to this is basically combining the worst of Bush with the worst of Clinton and Obama. Trump merges the war on drugs with the war on terror in Venezuelan showdown. The Trump administration, their invocation of Al-Qaeda, so they claim Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Hamas are running cells with the cartels in South America. I mean, total BS. Literally making up this worse garbage than we got under the neocons. Okay, that should really concern you. And these are the two lackeys behind him, Marco Rubio and the self-preening Fox host, Pete Hegseth, looking all serious and tough. Okay, these people, those are the basically tools that are going to implement this ridiculous debacle. So this is the most neocon administration, and probably more than Bush, because the rhetoric is so over the top. I mean, at least the neocons tried to hide it a little bit. I mean, Cheney tried to finesse it a little bit. Bush, not with these guys. Not when we'll show you who's behind all this, by the way, in just a minute. Just stay with us. We'll show you who's behind it. So Trump takes one of the worst things in U.S. history, which is the war on terror, reinvigorates it, and is pushing these fake stories that Al-Qaeda and ISIS and Hamas and who knows, Hezbollah is probably in there as well. I haven't watched Newsmax lately or One American News, so I'm not sure what other fake reporting they're injecting in here. Sleeper cells. Hamas sleeper cells in Mexico, hiding behind the taco van. Okay, that's what you get with these clowns. But nonetheless, he's doing it. So they're making this fake war on drugs narrative and pinning it to Venezuela to justify starting a war with Venezuela. A, to keep them out of the oil market, possibly steal some of their resources if possible, definitely regime change. So they have to make up a fake story to kind of make this, to sell this to the American people in the world, that Venezuela is a narco state. Okay, interesting. So it turns out they're also going for Colombia. Look at this. U.S. imposes sanctions on left-wing Colombian President Petro. So Trump's claiming that somehow this is a narco state as well. But before Trump was sworn in, Colombia was the greatest U.S. ally, third or fourth, debatable, depending on which numbers you're looking at, third or fourth biggest recipient of U.S. military aid. This goes back for a number of years. So clearly there's not problem between the U.S. and Colombia. What happened? We're going to show you what happened. Look at this. So I'm going to play you a video. So this is the same president, Gustavo Petro. So why is the U.S. suddenly attacking Venezuela and Colombia? These are the two. Well, I'll show you Colombia. Watch this clip. This is from the United Nations General Assembly. This is the Colombian president, and you'll be able to kind of put the dots together. Watch.
Y armas toca hoy. No son cascos azules, no entrenados y a veces indispuestos para lo que toca. Es un ejército poderoso de los países que no aceptan el genocidio. Por eso invito a las naciones del mundo y a sus pueblos sobre todo, como parte de la humanidad, a unir ejércitos y armas. Hay que liberar a Palestina.
History shows NATO's willingness to act when it suits Western power. In 1999, under the banner of humanitarian intervention, NATO launched Operation Allied Force in Yugoslavia, citing the massacre of more than 8,000 Bosniak men and boys at Srebrenica in July 1995. Recognized later by the International Court of Justice in 2007 as genocide, NATO again moved in Kosovo, bypassing the UN Security Council, claiming to stop ethnic cleansing. In 2011, NATO enforced a no-fly zone in Libya after UN Security Council Resolution 1973 and carried out regime change, ending with the eventual brutal killing of Pan-Arab and Pan-African leader Muammar Gaddafi. The rationale was the, quote, responsibility to protect. Years later, Libya is still in civil war, suffering a humanitarian crisis as well as becoming a site of human slavery. Meanwhile, ex-Yugoslav republics still struggle with economics and political instability. But when genocide consumed Rwanda in 1994, killing more than 800,000 people in 100 days, no such coalition intervened. When war and genocide ravaged the Democratic Republic of Congo from 1996 onwards, killing more than 6 million people, the deadliest conflict since World War II, the world turned away. Today, Sudan faces the world's largest humanitarian crisis, with thousands killed. Yet the world does nothing. Gaza has been reduced to rubble, and reports confirm that Israel committed genocide and was using starvation as a weapon of war. Today, Israel is violating the so-called historic ceasefire, and dozens continue to be brutally killed. NATO and the UN Security Council are doing nothing. On his part, Colombia's President Gustavo Petro joined thousands in a rally in New York for Gaza, calling on the US Army to refuse Trump's orders and continue its complicity in genocide. And Washington, on its part, revoked his visa, punishing him for siding with the Palestinian people.
Invito a los ejércitos del Asia, de los pueblos eslavos que derrotaron con tanto heroísmo a Hitler, a los ejércitos latinoamericanos de Bolívar, de Garibaldi, que también tuvo uno en Italia, de Martí, de Artigas, de Santa Cruz. Ya sobran las palabras. Es la hora de la espada, de la libertad o muerte de Bolívar, porque desde Washington y la OTAN matan la democracia y hacen renacer la tiranía y el totalitarismo a nivel global. Hay que levantar la bandera rojinegra de la libertad o muerte que alzó Bolívar, sin olvidar el color blanco que levantó junto al rojinegro, color de la paz como esperanza para que haya esperanza de vida en la tierra y en el corazón de la humanidad.
So that's the Colombian president. This is why he's sanctioned, standing up against Israel and the U.S. for what they're doing to the Palestinians. Okay? Let's be clear. That's what this is about. And suddenly they're a narco state. Honestly, you couldn't make this stuff up. And let's talk about, Venezuela. Let's talk about Venezuela, that country. Suddenly, Venezuela became a narco state. This is a new development that nobody has seen before. It just manifested itself in the first year of the Trump presidency. Kind of bizarre, isn't it? So why is the U.S. so keen on overthrowing Chavez first, couple failed coups, and now Maduro? Interesting, isn't it? Let's take a look at that. Beside the fact that Venezuela defends the Palestinian cause, okay, you just saw the Colombian president there basically calling for deploying Colombian troops to protect Palestinians in Gaza as UN peacekeepers, okay? This is a bridge too far for Israel. And of course, Trump takes his orders from Netanyahu. That's Trump's boss, Benjamin Netanyahu, and the Israeli lobby, who stamped their boot of authority in the U.S. Last month. Okay, I don't want to go into details, but that shooting, okay, just a very, very strong signal was sent. Okay, so what's the real story? What's the real story? 1993. Watch this clip. Watch this clip. Talking about narco states. Let's talk about narco states.
Who authorized the CIA to go into Venezuela?
We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela.
A ton of cocaine, pure cocaine worth hundreds of millions, is smuggled into the United States. Sound familiar? Not the way this ton of cocaine got here. According to what the former head of the Drug Enforcement Administration told Mike Wallace, this drug shipment got here courtesy of what he calls drug trafficking by the CIA in partnership with the Venezuelan National Guard.
Let me understand what you're saying. A ton of cocaine was smuggled into the United States of America by the Venezuelan National Guard?
Well,
in cooperation with the CIA?
That's exactly what appears to have happened.
Until last month, Judge Robert Bonner was the head of the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA. And Judge Bonner explained to us that only the head of the DEA is authorized to approve the transportation of any illegal narcotics like cocaine into this country, even if the CIA is bringing it in.
Let me put it this way, Mike. If this has not been approved by DEA or an appropriate law enforcement authority in the United States, then it's illegal. It's called drug trafficking. It's called drug smuggling.
So what you're saying, in effect, is the CIA broke the law. Simple as that.
I don't think there's any other way you can rationalize around it.
Back in the 1980s, the CIA was mandated by then-President Reagan to develop intelligence on the Colombian drug cartels. And so the CIA, with Venezuela's Guardia Nacional, or National Guard, set up an undercover operation, a drug smuggling operation in Venezuela that could handle the transshipment of the Colombian cartel's cocaine on its way to market.
So that was before Chavez. Because when Chavez came in the late 90s and early 2000s, that was the end of that arrangement. The CIA lost access to be able to traffic drugs out of Colombia via Venezuela using the military under the pro-U.S. government in Venezuela, the corrupt pro-U.S. government. Okay. Isn't that interesting? Didn't know that, did you? Why were they just so hell-bent on not just the fact that Chavez and Maduro were kind of socialists, but the big, and I said this many times, especially in the last 6 months, or it was ever since Trump started attacking fishing boats in Venezuela and saying they were running drugs. The biggest drug dealers in the Western Hemisphere are the CIA and the DEA, working with cartels, okay? Not Nicolas Maduro. Ridiculous. Total lie. And quite unbelievable that people actually believe this stuff. We just showed you a report from 60 Minutes from 1993. 1993. So back when the U.S. had its puppet in Venezuela, they were running untold amounts of narcotics. The U.S. government was trafficking. But not under Chavez and Maduro. And that's one of the reasons why the U.S. wants to get rid of them. Because they want their puppet back in. You see how this works? And there's another aspect to this that you probably don't know. which we're going to show you. Okay. Who else is involved in Colombia during this time with U.S. forces and so forth? Who else is involved in Colombia? This might not come as a surprise to some people. It shouldn't. It really shouldn't. Certainly didn't to me, but I've known this for years. Let's take a look. What's this say? Colombia shifting military ties, moving away from decades of Israeli-sponsored violence. What is the IDF? What have they been doing in Colombia for the last 20 years? Anybody? Who is trafficking Class A drugs from Latin America into Europe and the Middle East? Who is one of the biggest traffickers? Is it Israel? This is a legit question. Why is Israel so involved in Colombia? It's a good question, isn't it? It's a very good question. Do they have carte blanche to move product? That's a legit question, isn't it? Well, if the CIA do, I'm sure Israel does as well. So, but under Gustave Petro, that's not happening. And suddenly he's being sanctioned by Trump. And the U.S. is talking about, possibly starting a war in Venezuela and Colombia. Are you guys connecting the dots on this? Just saying. Is this new to anybody? If this is new for you, I mean, you can. There's much more. I'm just giving you the tip of the iceberg, folks. If you knew the level of Israeli involvement in Colombia, amazing. And you understand this is a global mafia we're talking about here, okay? And this guy and these clowns work for it, okay? These so-called patriots. Unbelievable. Such corruption. You couldn't believe it. So they're after Venezuela and Colombia because those countries are against Israel. And they're making a lot of noise in the UN. It's definitely Colombia is. And they're not allowing the Israelis in. And that's the bottom line right there. Is this president is owned and operated by the Israeli lobby, by Netanyahu's office, by Mary Madelson. This is a billboard campaign in Israel. You see? Israel's got exactly what they wanted. They got their guy in there. His son-in-law is running all the property deals, along with the other Israeli agent or asset, pardon me, Steve Witkoff. Another of Netanyahu's selections. These people have sold America down the river for a couple of shekels and a bag of silver. That's kind of what it amounts to. This is one of the biggest coups, if not the biggest coup, in American history. And that guy is probably the weakest U.S. president, weaker than Biden on a certain level, because at least Biden had the excuse that he had dementia. Trump clearly doesn't have dementia, although his mental acuity is questionable of recent. But we'll put that aside for the moment. So here's how this clown managed to carve out a place in this administration is quite extraordinary. His name's Stephen Miller. I don't exactly know what his title is, but he basically plagiarized Joseph Goebbels in this speech. Again, quite unbelievable. The irony here is quite amazing. Let's listen to this. Completely unhinged. I would say it's probably one of the most dangerous people in U.S. politics because he's trying to portray himself as some kind of a patriot. But this is fascism with a capital F. right here.
Prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil. They cannot imagine what they have awakened. They cannot conceive of the army that they have arisen in all of us. Because we stand for what is good, what is virtuous, what is noble. And to those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have? You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness, you are jealousy, you are envy, you are hatred. You are nothing. You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing. We are the ones who build. We are the ones who create. We are the ones who lift up humanity. You thought you could kill Charlie Kirk? You have made him immortal. You have immortalized Charlie Kirk. And now millions will carry on his legacy. And
folks, I don't know what to say, but that's just pretty breathtaking right there. I mean, really, these people are out to divide the country and literally plagiarized from a Goebbels speech, Nazi. And this is Stephen Miller, who's a Zionist. I mean, folks, it's just, the irony is just so incredible. So Trump's deploying troops on the streets of U.S. cities to do law enforcement, and he's wanting to federalize the National Guard under some kind of a executive order, claiming there's an emergency. So he's claiming there's an emergency with the war on drugs with Venezuela, fake. Claiming that there's some kind of emergency that didn't exist in the last 10 or 20 years in U.S. cities, deploying the military against posse comitatus. You need a fake emergency to do that. This is what Trump's doing. It's beyond, it's not just a little bit fascist. They're wanting to reboot some kind of a war with Cuba, authorizing CIA regime change activities, multiple Latin American countries. This is a return to Henry Kissinger level and neocon level foreign interference, starting wars in the Western Hemisphere. Allowing the Israeli lobby to kill the First Amendment in the U.S. by policing speech. I mean, it's incredible. ICE running basically secret police. I mean, yes, there were open borders during the Biden administration, but you don't trample on due process to correct a problem from the previous administration. You create another problem by doing that. Not only that, you give the federal government power that it didn't have before. And the next administration that comes in, probably Democrat, they're going to retain those powers and use them against Republicans. And they're right. So they've created a tit for tat of sectarian and partisan division and abuse of power and fascism that will just roll on from one administration to the next. And Trump has got the tech bros basically, he's given them a front row seat in the government. The whole sort of theatrical performance by Elon Musk. And of course, Musk isn't in there anymore because that was a total disaster. But him and Peter Thiel and all these people pushing for AI and digital IDs, Larry Ellison as well. He's given them the keys to the future of the country's administrations and governance. He has given corporate power. He's merged it with state power. He's merged corporate interests with state power. That, by definition, is fascism. It's not my definition. That's Benito Mussolini, the father of fascism. That's what Donald Trump has done. That's what this is about. Okay. And what's amazing about this, While this is happening, Israel, the Israeli Knesset, votes to annex the West Bank. And Trump said famously a few weeks ago, it's never going to happen. I won't let it happen. Well, the Israeli parliament just voted on it to annex the West Bank. So there'll be no Palestinian state. So all this is getting absorbed by Israel, including parts of Gaza. There's a clip going around with Witkoff and Jared Kushner basically giving the game away, saying they planned this 2 years ago. The real estate development deal. These people are so evil and corrupt. So J.D. Vance, the vice president, who I held a lot of hope for initially. I thought, okay, maybe he'll be Trump's intelligent better half. No, J.D. Vance has dropped IQ points. You know, it's plummeting. He's probably losing about 20 a week at this point. So he was asked about this Israeli vote. Trump won't comment on it because, of course, this is just total egg in the face of Donald Trump. Trump a few weeks ago, I'm not going to let it happen. It can't happen. They've done enough. No, they've done it. Donald, they've done it. They're doing it. So here's Vance. Here's J.D. Vance's when confronted by the press about this Israeli move. Here's what J.D. Vance. This is the best he could muster. J.D. Vance.
About it. Somebody told me that it was a political stunt, that it had no practical significance. It was purely symbolic. I mean, look, if it was a political stunt, it was a very stupid political stunt, and I personally take some insult to it. The West Bank is not going to be annexed by Israel. The policy of the Trump administration is that the West Bank will not be annexed by Israel. That will continue to be our policy. And if people want to take symbolic votes, they can do that. But we certainly weren't happy about it.
JD, do you think Israel cares what you think? Do you think Israel cares what the Trump administration's policy is? The Trump administration is Israel first, America second. And Israel knows this because they paid for that privilege. So what are you talking about? Someone needs to, as Matt Gaetz said, someone needs to do a wellness check on poor J.D. Vance. I think he's losing it. Sad. It's very sad. Israel doesn't care what you think, JD. They don't care, certainly don't care what Donald Trump thinks or says. Because what Trump says changes from one day to the next, or from between breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He'll flip twice on a daily basis. It's not credible. It's a joke. Just like anything you say about, Israel can't do this or that. It's a joke. You allowed them to prosecute a genocide with your weapons in full view of the world. Okay. And this clip did the rounds. And this has gone viral on multiple platforms. It's the voice of Donald Trump. And when he was having his celebrity roast, jolly in front of the Israelis over there getting his marching orders from Netanyahu, it was just a total humiliation for America. This president is something else, what he has done. But here's this video has gone viral, and this should really make your skin curl. They overlaid Trump's voice over the hellscape of Gaza, and this is just an unbelievable video, and this really kind of brings it home. The level of corruption that we are witnessing here is just unprecedented. We'll try to see if we can find that clip. I don't have it to hand. I'll have to just do a quick search on that. But it is really just unbelievable how this has been able to get to the point that it has. It is really beyond the pale. Let me see if I have that Trump clip. I mean, you really have to watch this. Let me see. Here we go.
The best weapons in the world, and we've got a lot of them, and we've given a lot to Israel, frankly. I mean, Bibi would call me so many times, can you get me this weapon, that weapon, that weapon? Some of them I never heard of, Bibi, and I made them. But we'd get them here, wouldn't we? And they are the best. They are the best. But you used them well. It also takes people that know how to use them. And you obviously used them very well. But so many that Israel became strong and powerful, which ultimately led to peace. That's what led to peace.
Is that what you call peace, Donald Trump? Look at that hellscape. Look at that. That black mark on humanity. That's what Trump calls peace. They used our weapons well, said Donald Trump. This guy his brain is fried. Or either that, he is the most immoral, kind of like just bereft of any ethics or morals, more than any human you could ever present. I mean, it's just crazy for a U.S. president to talk like this. But what's even more disgusting is that there's no Democrats that have got a spine left to call him out for this. This is a black mark on America. It's a black mark on the presidency. I mean, what this guy is doing on a weekly basis. I mean, he put out a meme, this clown, this sorry excuse for a president. At this point, Donald Trump puts out a meme on his official account that shows him flying a U.S. fighter jet, wearing the crown of Burger King, and dropping feces on Democratic protesters, like SHIT, human feces. That's a U.S. president. So he has dishonored the office, dishonored the country, and but you know, if it wasn't bad that these people are so corrupt, the opposition is equally as corrupt. This is how bad it is in the U.S. So for the MAGA cheerleaders, I'm just going to say that, you know, you guys are sort of a waste of space at this point. You too are corrupt. You too have lost your way. I don't know what to say at this point. It's just disgusting. And speaking of corruption, let's see how far it goes. So Alex Jones, this is his newsletter. Trump-backed strikes devastating Russian infrastructure. U.S. moves towards total war with Russia. It's almost like he is cheering this. I'm not sure. It's difficult to say. But a lot of excitement there from Alex Jones. Trump announces plan to invade Venezuela as government shutdown enters day 3. So are we against Trump invading Venezuela? So Alex Jones was the guy that pioneered people waking up, red pilling people on regime change and false flag back in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11. And suddenly he is basically Trump's kind of cheerleading section in the formerly independent media, which is now mainstream. It's hard to distinguish it from Fox. In fact, you can't. That's a bit of a problem. And it's unfortunate. We'll talk about that during the second part of Overdrive. Folks, I mean, we went a little bit longer than we wanted to on this, and certainly there's a lot more to cover with this. We want to talk more about Viktor Orban and what's happening in Hungary, but I think you've got the picture. That's the priority as we see it, folks. Freedom to fascism. The irony of this for conservatives, you know, those who identify as conservative, the irony of this is too much. It's happening under Trump. And you're destroying, you're stamping on the Constitution, the First Amendment, to protect Israel. Why are you doing it? Political power, access, career, grift. I guess it's worth it. I guess it's all worth it. Must be worth it. A career in Washington is important for people. I understand if you're married to politics and getting government positions and getting rich off the military industrial complex and the military media industrial complex, then yeah, I guess it's worth it. It's worth it. Sad, but that's where we're at. Let's take a break right now with the Alternate Current Radio Network and 21stCenturyWire.com. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We'll see you in a few minutes. And here is Joseph Arthur. We'll be back before too long. And with Overdrive on the other side, I think Hesher's going to join us, possibly another colleague. We'll also highlight some of the top comments from our audience. We'll see you in a minute.
Brothers and sisters,